My foster father used to visit my bed every morning. And my name is Barbara Lane, and I am a survivor of life in foster care in a foster home. My story began when I was 3 years old, when our family fell apart and many of myself and my sisters fell into foster care. That could have been traumatic for a lot of people, but for me, the real trauma was when we were separated and placed in different foster care homes, and I lost track of my sisters for most of my life. Our mother abandoned us younger children in the projects in St. Louis. She turned off the heat, she turned off the water, she sold all the furniture, and she left. And we were there 3 days in what was the coldest winter in St. Louis before a neighbor figured out something wasn't right and called Catholic Charities, who came and got us and placed us in St. Dominic's Orphanage in St. Louis. The trauma was when I watched my sisters leave the orphanage. One by one, they'd have these little suitcases in their hand. They'd get in cars with people I didn't know or a taxi, and they were just gone. And that broke my heart. My sister Kay and I were placed in the home of a Mafia grunt. It was a very, very abusive home. He was incredibly charismatic, convinced everyone that we were happy and doing well there, while he was literally threatening us by gunpoint not to say anything about what was going on in that home. But he was so charismatic, he convinced the social workers that we were doing much better if she would cut off ties with all of our sisters and just keep everyone away and let them get on with our life, parenting us in the way they thought, was best for us. Of course, none of that was true, but it's the way it went. They believed him. When he introduced us to, we didn't know there was anything wrong with the approach that he took with us until I think one time I drew a picture of his body as much as a 3-year-old could, almost 4-year-old could, and got smacked in the face for doing that, until never ever to do anything like that again. This went on the whole time we lived there through our adolescence, and he would threaten us so that we wouldn't tell anyone that he would kill one or the other of us sisters, and we didn't want that to happen, so we learned very quickly to be quiet. And I think I was 14 when I had enough of this, and I asked him to please take his gun and just shoot me, because I didn't want to live anymore. And so he raised his hand. I thought he was going to hit me, which he hit us all the time, so that wouldn't have been anything new. But instead, he put his hand down and he walked out of the room, and he never bothered me again. I thought to myself, if I had known it had been so easy as to ask him to kill me and things would have stopped, I would have asked him a long time before that. So after that event, he began to allow me to leave the house. I was able to ride my bike. I was able to join choir at school and, be in the play and play sports. And for some reason, he just gave me my freedom that allowed me an opportunity to feel somewhat normal. He was an ex-boxer, so he had muscles, and he would beat my sister Kay something awful. And I remember a particular time, it was in my nature to protect her, and I tried to stand between them to get him off of her. I screamed and screamed and couldn't stop. He stopped hitting her only because I think I was screaming so loudly he was afraid the neighbors would hear, and that one sticks in my mind a lot, trying to protect her. I struggled with learning. I really did. I had a hard time reading. I had a hard time focusing at school because of what was going on in the home, as well as the fact that I was missing my sisters so much. The nuns, we went to a little Catholic school, and the nuns literally referred to me with the R word, which I refused to say, out of honor for anyone who had struggles with issues like that. And I believed them. I really thought that there was something wrong with me and that I was incapable of learning. They would tap on my head and use my birth name, Lane. What's wrong with you? Are you R or what? And it would make all the other kids in the classroom know I was a foster child. It was horrific. I couldn't learn. For me, it was freedom. It was expressing and finding out who I was. Adolescence is a time to find out who you are. And I was free to do that. I was free to learn about friendships. I was free. I was very athletic, quite a tomboy. I played sports. I played tennis, which is how I met my husband, actually, at the age of 14. And so what I did was take all those memories of what had occurred before I was 14. And the way I describe it is I built a dungeon in my mind with really strong bars, a cell in there. And I put all of them in there and locked them away so that I could pretend that I had a normal life. From 14 forward, I thought I was doing pretty well. And I was, for the most part. It wasn't until I got older that those bars in that dungeon just started giving way, and I realized I had to get some help. I must have been in first grade. That morning, at Mass, I listened to the Catholic priest telling us first graders that Jesus was our friend, our brother, and that he would always be with us. My foster father used to visit my bed every morning and fondle me. That night, after the priest and the Mass, when I went to bed, I said a prayer to my brother Jesus to come and stay with me and protect me, because I believed that priest. I really did. And so I went to sleep that night, and I had the most magnificent dream. In my dream, Jesus came to me and put me on his lap and told me never to worry. No matter what happened, he would always be with me, always. So the morning when I woke up, my hand was warm, and I believed it was warm from being held in the hands of the Christ. And when my foster father came in that morning, I wasn't there. In my mind, I was with Jesus. So I think that is taking some horrible events and yet helping individuals understand what children do with it and what I did with it. And to this day, Jesus is my brother. So it's, there's always two sides to every coin. I didn't realize until I was much older what many of the signs I saw actually meant. He once took just me to a bakery with him, and he had this package under his arm, and he sat me down at the table and gave me a donut and a glass of milk, and went back in the back room for 20 minutes or so, and then came back out. All of a sudden, this became a ritual where every Saturday he said, come on, we're going to the bakery, which was in downtown St. Louis. We lived in the county. And every Saturday morning, I had a donut and a glass of milk while he had this package wrapped in newspaper, went back in the back room, and then back out. What was in that package? I don't know. But, it couldn't have been good. I don't know if he was getting rid of guns. I mean, I could only assume. But then, I often overheard my foster mother speaking in her Sicilian dialect that I learned to understand. But I would never speak it because I didn't want them to think I understood what they were saying. But I did, and I knew what was coming. But I heard her say to one of her sisters on the phone that he was trying to break away from the Mafia, but that's an impossible task. They don't let you go. You had to walk on eggshells. You had to watch what you said. I got to the point where I would sit at the living room window and watch out the window and see him drive up coming home from work. And I could tell by the look on his face what was going to happen. So I would tell everybody to be quiet, my foster mother and my older sister Kay. Don't say a word, be quiet, because I could usually cajole him, tell him something good about himself, something like, I understand what a tough job, what a tough day, so that things would settle down and no one would get hurt. But my sister Kay had a hard time staying quiet. She would speak up to him as if she was asking him to hit her, although there was nothing she ever did that deserved that. But, I was always trying to calm things down, and it was very hard with her because she'd be angry and she'd say something to him smart, and then he'd get on her, and then I'd try to, protect them, get between them, tell him to stop. But usually I just get hit in the way. You'd get hit too, just trying to be there. He would throw chairs, he would throw plates, whatever he could get his hands on, he would throw. It was just the same thing over and over and over. My sister Kay often had broken glasses, bruises on her face, bruises on her arms. When he would throw something, he really didn't take aim. He was just throwing. I stayed out of fear in that home until I married my husband. I was 19. And it wasn't until after we were married that I started to realize I needed help. I needed to deal with all this because I had somewhat of obsessive compulsive tendencies. Like if there was a glass in the sink, I couldn't go to bed till it was clean and put away. The floors were immaculate. I mean, I played it out in that way. So I was fortunate to find an incredible therapist that really helped me work through my childhood trauma. I just got in that dungeon and dug it all out and took a look at it because you cannot heal it until you know what it is you have to heal. I reunited with all my sisters when I was 42. I did a lot of healing before we were reunited, so I was really ready for that experience. And when we were all together, I was to learn there wasn't one of us that escaped. Not one in our childhood. So that really put me on a passionate journey to gather their stories, to listen to them when perhaps no one else ever did. And I spent one-on-one time with each sister, listening to their stories of horror and, and watching them heal at the same time, because there's healing in sharing your story. There's much healing in sharing your story. And so it took me 15 years to gather all their stories because this isn't easy to talk about. They shared them when they were ready, and I wasn't going to push anyone. I didn't even know I was going to write a book. They just wanted me to take a journal down for them. And then eventually they said, will you write it in a book for me and for us? And I said, okay. I love them so much I couldn't say no. So it became Their Stories United. And I'm so proud of each and every one of them because they all stood up and told a terrible story to tell. And they all did it. They all did it with the hope that our stories will inspire others who've been through some of the tragedies we've been through and know that you can heal from it, that you can be whatever you want to be. It takes work. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of tears, but there's a doorway there you can walk through and close it behind you and leave it all past. My book is Broken Water, an extraordinary true story, and it's about 11 abandoned and sisters who reunite after 43 years and share their stories. It takes a strength of a warrior to seek help, and to seek help, use that strength. Be proud of yourself. There's no shame in seeking help. There's no shame in help. I think that healing involves a remembrance of who you are, which is, in my view, a divine child of the Creator, of the ultimate, the universe, whatever word you use. And when you are abandoned, mistreated, you forget, you lose connection with the reality of who you are. And healing can be somewhat spontaneous when you remember. It's just that remembrance that you are divine.